to our environment all the time. So when this person has this energy come up within them, the energy is also broadcasting. And it's broadcasting that you're ready for a fight. It's angry, it's upset, it wants to create some disharmony in your life. In fact, because the energy feeds off your emotions, because all of us, we all get to that point where we become so emotional, we lose our composure. And once we've lost our composure, we're now in the situation that whatever entity comes up is going to say and do something that we are going to regret, but we can't do anything about it.
So that was going to be my next question. You know, how the hell do we do something about it? Because if you're unconscious and this thing, you know, starts to come up, because as you're speaking, you know, and not to out myself because I'm not like this anymore, but, you know, when I was younger, I definitely went through phases of turning into clingy girlfriend. But in my normal life, I wasn't clingy. And, you know, and it's like, oh my God, I can remember my younger days and just, you know, so how can anyone, when these feelings start to rise, how can you even get to the other side of it to even see what's rising, let alone try and maybe summon up, you know, personality number 3?
Oh, there's more than 3.
3 and 4 come.
The thing is, there's people that you're in front of that for some reason you never lose it in front of them. If it be in a work environment, all of a sudden your finances, there's a program in there that shuts you down to say, don't tell your boss. Unless you're tired of working there, you don't tell your boss you're an idiot. You know, you don't do it. So there is a part within you that can contain it. And you can get to a point where you create a program, because everything in your life is a program. Before you brush your teeth, there's a program that does it. Comb your hair, whatever you do, there's a program you write first. And based on your sense of priority or fear or whatever paradigm, you write that program for that person. When you say you love someone, oh, that's an interesting one. Okay. Do you love their physical appearance and the sensations gathered as a result of seeing them? Or do you love the consciousness or the actual thinking, deep person inside? Because there's 2 different types of love. Because the physical one can go when the physicality changes. And unfortunately, the story behind that individual, if that changes as well, the physicality can change in front of you. You could have the most beautiful person and you hear they were into this. Your mind has a set of rules, and anyone who does that, you can't physically find attractive. So what you see and what you think and what you feel within someone is a program you constructed of the idea of that person. And if that idea changes, how you feel towards them changes.
Totally true. So, but what can I do? So what can I do? It's rising up. How to have that space? How does one have that space to, you know, let's say it's jealousy. Jealousy is coming up. How can you create that space or bring in the next personality to deal with jealousy? Or how can you dissipate it?
Okay. Well, the term patience means your ability to not react to your environment. So when your environment changes and things change within it, your ability to hold down who you are and not say something and watch and see why it's all taking place is something you grow within yourself. And you literally, mentally tell yourself certain programs that in this situation, X and Y, I will choose this and I'll behave in this way. You can literally control your emotional response. That's why if 2 people see the same thing, they don't act the same way. One can control their reaction and the other person can't. So it becomes something that you're determined within yourself to do. And if there is a sense of loss that is greater than your sense of gain, you can actually contain yourself in that scenario. So if you say, I love this person so much that to hurt them would hurt me, you would start to feel pain when you're trying to hurt them, but you've written that into your program. And this is why you'll find that people often hurt the people they know won't leave. Yeah, because you know straight away, if I say something, they're gonna give me a bit of tolerance. And that's how you'll see those, what we call narcissist energies, but I hate the word narcissist in the sense that it just seems a long word for many different things, because you don't have just the one that's ready to attack someone, you also have the one that is passive, that is ready to accept everything as well, that is in a situation that when it's provoked, the person doesn't come out to defend themselves, they go and hide in their shell. And that's again due to child rearing, or where they may have had a narcissist parent that didn't want to accept any blame, was never wrong, and always wanted to control everything so that the entity in control of them could feed off everyone's fears. Because the thing about those narcissists, or those energies, they only live for war. They can't love anyone. They can only love when you're losing to them. And when you're looking scared and frightened, that's when they get in their most food. Because they're actually feeding off your face. You see a little smoke on their face, like, I got him, or I got her, you know? And now she's looking scared. And now she's doing what I asked without asking for anything back. Because I've devalued who she is and only told her she has value if she gives all the credit to me. And you're waiting for that person to give you credit before you can feel good about anything you're doing, because they've smashed your confidence. That is the aim of the entity. Smash your confidence to the point where you have none against them and they can feed off you. It's the entity feeding off you, not the person. The person is being fed off from the entity internally, so they don't have no confidence in themselves, and they have to put people down so that they can feel confident about putting someone else down. They feed off the other person's weakness. That's where they get their energy from. That's their food. I'll say one more thing about the passive person. The thing about the passive person is they've lost the capacity to love themselves. So therefore, they need someone, before they can feel love, they need someone to reflect that to them. Because they can't feel it within themselves. That's why they're the do-gooders. Because they need to do good to feel good. Otherwise, they don't feel anything at all. And the entity, again, within them, steals that part of them that they feel good about themselves, and have them constantly feeding that darker side. So some people that are do-gooders feel better about themselves, they're more close to God or what have you, but they're not. They're more afraid within themselves, and they don't have the capacity to go out and get what they want because they're too afraid asking for permission first from an arc.
So I want you to tell us about the entities, because I'm very fascinated by them. I think I told you before about in a mushroom trip where at first I was shown how we were keeping unhelpful energies actually prisoner. And it was so interesting. At first, when I was shown it as my dad and his energies he was keeping prisoner, you know, I was quite smug and watching, thinking, oh yeah, I knew he was greedy, you know. And it was like, it was beyond his heart, and he had all these cells just filled with all these energies that actually wanted to leave, and he was holding them prisoner. And then the medicine was like, but look who you're holding in your heart. And it was like, I looked down and I could see, oh, I'm holding some negative energies prisoner. And when I managed to kind of get my heart open for them to go, the realization was almost like, they were like, we only came for a little visit and you just locked us in. And it was really interesting. It was like these energies, they didn't want to stay. And it blew my mind for ages, because then it did give me that space with when feelings would come up, I would think, am I holding you prisoner? I want you to go. I want to set you free. So I want you to talk to us about entities and these energies that, they're also a life form, an energy signature.
Okay. These are dependent on whether you created them or other people created them for you. Like I said, when you're in a situation, okay, the concept of looking, everyone's got this thing, I'm looking at something, and they perceive that the thing they're looking at is in the distance. When in honesty, this is when we talk about what 3D and 4D and all that really is. You're never looking at anything that isn't inside your mind. The concept of distance, time and space are just constructs in your mind of how you interpret information and create the image of what you call a hologram in your mind. You're only ever looking inside your mind, which is a hard one to take because people are of the opinion that there's out there where there's no out there. The classic one, as we always say, is look at a television. And when you're looking at a television, you can see out in the distance of the television. But the television's only a couple of inches thick. So there's nothing out there or beyond there. It's your mind that has constructed that image and fed it back to yourself. The same thing if you're driving fast in a car and your mind is, 80, 90 miles an hour, and you're comfortable at that speed, your eyes seeing everything comfortable. As soon as you slow down to 60 miles an hour, it's like everything is moving in slow motion. You say, oh, it says 60 miles an hour, this isn't exactly slow. Everything you're seeing is you speeding up images, you slowing down images, you're creating the images, the size. That's why two people standing next to each other don't see the same thing, because they're using two different memory mind programs to create the image that they're actually looking at. Yeah?
With the entities.
With the entities now, okay. The entities exist. How do you put it now? Okay. What's your word? Entity. Identity. Idea, entity. We are an idea. We're really an entity with an idea. Most of us are working in our own personal storyline. This is what we do, this is where we live, this is who we are, this is what my color, this is what my gender is. All of us are working on a story. We're trying to balance out our story with the restrictions of what our parents' story is, our culture story is. We're really just trying to fix a story that we inherited when we came to this world. Now, we are the entity. These entities are just essences like us, but they don't have a body. They can't command the energy of a body. All of us started as little ants and over millions of years learned to control bigger and more sophisticated machines until we got to the point where we can control the body. These entities don't have bodies they can control. So therefore what they do is they try and control us. They hang around our imagination. So when we're creating images in our mind, these entities want to be that final word. Oh no, you can't do this. Oh yes, you can do that. And they can vicariously, as you create an emotion, as you have a vision in your mind, and then you have a discussion in your mind, and then you have a situation where you make a judgment and create an emotion within your body. They want you to create emotions based on their judgments so that you then feed your body with that emotion. They are charged by your thoughts and by your feelings. So their aim is to keep you in as low vibration as possible so that more of them can cross over. Now we have this thing where you say we only see 1% of the spectrum, but there's 99% we don't see. So what could live in the reality outside of what we can see? And what could move into us? And what could take over our effectively computer mechanism mind? And be at a point where they're that voice inside us, where they can give us the nudge to go in this way, the nudge to go that way. When you're in a situation where I said, I fancy a cake, where did that come from? That could be another energy saying, I want them to do this so I can feel the enjoyment they have from eating that cake, even though it's not good for you. And then you have so many entities that are parasites. If you go, any illness in your body is alive. Otherwise, it couldn't create more of itself. It couldn't move around, which means it has an intelligence and a life force, and it's a living, thinking being. So many of the things within you are all living, thinking beings. So there again, another entity. Yeah, so there's tons of them all over the place. So
that is so true. So many times I would program Lorna to speak about parasites, because the first time we ever got talking, it was like all my chakras, something in me was like, people need to hear and understand about parasites and what they can do. And, you know, even with my mum, when she was really still quite sick, there's always been this battle in the household of, you know, my brother comes over, she gives her healing, and there's always this kind of like, he's giving her healing and mum's ready to change loads of things, and then she goes back to how she was before. And the last time we went for a colonic irrigation was so interesting because she was really quite weak. She had cancer and all around the gallbladder. And because of what I'd learned from Lorna, we knew that it would be really helpful for her to have the colonic irrigation, because she's on all these pain meds that bung you up. So she's been really good for a few days with her food. We go in, she has a colonic irrigation, she comes up the stairs faster than when she went down. We get to the top of the cafe area and she suddenly says, I want a bacon roll. And it was so weird, because it was like, if we haven't had bacon in the house for maybe 7-8 years. She doesn't eat bacon roll. And I was so shocked. For a moment I felt like, I see you. I see the cancer, I see the illness coming up and asking for this. And so I just carried on staring at her and just said, no. And then we just sat there, because it was like it retreated a bit, and then the conversation changed. You know, and it was really, 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 I remember saying to Yao, I was like, this thing is really strong. And this is why every time we would do these things and she would really try and change things, then it's like it's a little, you know, it would just come up and suddenly like, oh, I haven't eaten all day, I think I want fish and chips. Fish and chips? You were doing Dr. Sebi yesterday. You know, it was, and we kept on discussing it as a family and saying, this shit is scary.
it's real.
Yeah.
And then it's a dangerous thing that when you find with those colonic things, you can take them and your mood improves. Because every time you eat, you also eat the energy of the environment that you're in. So if someone is having an argument, or someone is upset, or something is annoying, that energy is also transferred into the food. Now, we all have our various forms of protection, but you can't protect yourself from something you actually consume. It bypasses all the protection in your body. So that thought that those people were having when they cooked it, it goes straight into you. And that's where you could get an upset stomach, because now there's a battle of energies. Your energy inside you was imbalanced, but the energy in that thought and that person is now inside you, and it's wanting to cause trouble, but it's going to stay there. Because unless you've got an effective way to clear it out, this is where you get a load of different parasites with different cravings, but entities with different energies that they need you. Because you'll be saying, I want crisps, and it's the energy inside you that wants crisps. What does your mind do with crisps? Can't do nothing, but it's something inside you that says, we want that experience again of that taste. And that's why you can taste something the first time, and you know, you go there the next time, it doesn't taste as good. First time experience, you're like, oh. The second time, it's not as good, because the whole situation and the craving for it is different. Yeah, it's changed. The first, because again, you're constantly in your mind trying to find ways to make you feel better from moment to moment. So you're constantly scanning yourself, constantly scanning your mind. How do I feel right now? How do I feel right now? When someone asks you how you're doing, a quick MOT check, how am I doing? Oh yeah, I'm okay. And that's an overall okay if you don't think about all the other things that are going on inside you. Yeah, so your mind and your body is constantly under attack by thousands of different energies. Look at the most obvious thing. If there's 50 million cells in your billion cells or what have you in your body, each cell is a living, thinking thing. Each thing has a purpose. Each thing lives in certain organs in your body to do certain jobs. Imagine a reality that each one of your cells has a holographic world like what you have. And you're just a cell in another bigger body of who you are. And you've created a world that takes place in your mind where you see all these different things to give you a story to play in, to be a version of yourself. And you can transition, or your body transitions, but your consciousness goes and picks up another avatar to do it all over again in another dimension. All of us are living in our own personal dream world. Hence, when you go to sleep, you travel into different versions of yourself. You look through the eyes and say, oh, I know that person, I can remember that person, I saw that person. And depending on what you were thinking of before you went to sleep, you created a magnetic effect to pull you to one of your different versions that are having a similar experience, so that you can then go through the process within yourself where whenever you're in a dream, two things happen. You very rarely see your body. And the second thing is you don't die. Even when you do die, you turn around and see yourself at the funeral and watch everyone do. So if I can see them at the funeral, I haven't died, have I? So you don't actually die, because your consciousness can't end, and it exists in 1,000 different forms against 1,000 different dimensions. What you're in now is in your own personal, or not your own personal, one of the many different versions of who you are, living out a story. Yeah, you're trying to do your best. Can I have this? Can I have that? And because you don't control the parameters of the story, what you perceive as success is in other people's hands. They're the ones who've said, you've got to be like this, you've got to be like that. If you're not, think of yourself like this, think of yourself like that. The whole story, the whole program has been built. So you're just traveling through as a consciousness in your avatar, trying your very best to be the very best of what this matrix wants you to be.
So, as a couple, it seems to me with what you're saying is that you can only really do the work on yourself. And then if your partner isn't, or even if your partner is, you know, I'm really kind of wondering, like, spiritually, if you're two people, can there ever really be true, what's the word? You know, compatibility, that's the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can there ever really be true compatibility?
Okay.
When you've got your inside stuff, their inside stuff, all the outside stuff.
Okay. Going to another level there. All right. There's a meditation that we do on one of the courses where you go to your soul. You go to your soul, you travel to your soul. When you go to your soul, there's a committee of faceless people. The reason why they haven't got a face is because they haven't traveled into this dimension and chosen a face from the family that they've chosen to come through. So they have no face because they haven't made the journey here. But when you go to that place, you can find out the relationships you have with the people that you're with and how many hundreds of times you've had relationships with them. We say instant rapport takes hundreds of years to create. You've been with that person many times. There's a massive spiritual magnet connected to you and that person. So you could be, even now with the internet, find someone who's in some obscure little place and that was your partner. Whereas before, you might not have found them. You've had to use maybe someone that was second, but you'll find the person you're supposed to be with. I heard a beautiful analogy where they said, life is like traveling on a bus, and at certain bus stops, people will get on the bus and travel with you for a period of time and get off the bus. And then the next stop, someone else will get on. Because in truth, it's the hardest thing to agree that you're supposed to have one person throughout your life. Because in honesty, well, you haven't got much experience of life if you only got one person, to be fair, and you can't give much experience. But we have made agreements with all the people we've met, or to meet at a certain time, to meet them in a certain space, to get us to a certain place. And we've been together in previous lives before, and hence, when we meet each other, you know, when the time that you're meeting the person you're supposed to be with, there's no chat up lines. You say, hello, what's your name? They say your name. Would you like to go somewhere? 10 other people, they said no. With you, they say, oh yeah, where are we going? It's no work at all. It's effortless because it's an agreed arrangement that you're supposed to meet at a certain time to go on a certain journey. It might last a month, a week, but there was an agreement there why you agreed to that person and not all the millions that asked you before. So all of this is a very organized storyline that you're in. All the people that you were meant to meet were in your DNA before you got here. It was part of your trip that you planned before you got here.
So then, I'm imagining then, so then if it's a love connection, then you're both going to be on the same wavelengths to do the same work? Or am I being like a hopeless romantic?
The funny thing is, the body remembers what the mind forgets. So sometimes you can have a situation where you see someone and your body goes crazy, like, oh, am I connected to this person? I still want to be connected, because you're feeling a great feeling. That's because your bodies remember each other. Your minds don't remember each other, but your bodies do. And this is why people end up lifetime after lifetime after lifetime with the same person. Because they'll meet each other and they'll look different. 6'5" and 4'1". They still see each other and everyone's like, what's the connection? But they see it because they see each other's spirits and their bodies remember each other. Nothing happens accidentally, unfortunately. Accidentally on purpose, we say.
So really then the connection is about what it is that you're going to be working on yourself, even though you're with this person.
That's another thing. We say that a relationship is a theatre where both of you can play many roles in the safe environment of the stage, which is your life. So both of you with each other, hopefully you're at a place in life where all the different personalities between both of you are going to come and work it out. So that eventually you could find, well, that's how she is and that's how he is. And both of you can carry on. And you also have the paradigm where essentially your partner's supposed to bring out the best version of you. But they can all, and you're supposed to bring out the best versions of each other, but both of you can't actually share what is going on inside. Can't share it. You can only look in the person's face and hope that they're okay, and use that reflection to gauge whether you're doing well or not. But you're both supposed to bring out the best version of each other and be a good pair as you carry forward. You can love each other, like you say, physically, but it's always best to love each other mentally, because you will change as time goes by. You love it when you see those old people chasing each other, grabbing each other, because they only see themselves as children. They don't see themselves by their age. The body doesn't mean anything. It's the essence of the person who they're connected to.
Yeah, and that's always just so sweet. so sweet. So then when it comes to, I'm going to ask one more thing about love matches, and then I'll move into familial stuff. But in a relationship, in a potential, I suppose, love match, what's one to do when it's, because you meet some couples and they have this back and forth. When it's good, there seem to be magic, and yet there's something that doesn't work. do you recommend like people like that, there's still spiritual work that they're meant to do together? Do you think there's something they can do when they come to a resolution, or that, you know, together and apart that's all those two were meant to ever do or experience? What do you think?
Combination of two things. What do we say? Our bodies bring ourselves together, but our characters and personalities drive us apart. The thing is, you may unfortunately have a personality within you from a previous relationship that is a rogue personality. It's a rogue personality because it can literally act as a mental illness within you. And when it comes out, it will destroy everything and then disappear back into the person. And then you're looking at the person and saying, wasn't you that person doing that 5 minutes ago? And they're looking at me, who, what? You're being silly, I didn't do anything. Because they literally can't remember this personality taking over from them. That's why I say it's a rogue. Now, if the person has been in a trauma and the trauma wasn't recognized, and that energy has had years to just become angry and more angry and more angry, certain circumstances are going to bring that energy out, and that energy is carrying all those years of built-up anger. And you could look at someone and say, okay, they got bipolar, they turn into this. So if two people have two powerful energies like that within them, they can't stay together long. So sadly, you often have a compromise. You'll have one person that is quiet and the other person that has one of those personalities. And the only way they can manage to stay, because both of them can't be clashing all the time. Yeah? So you need one who has to learn to calm down, and they seem to only calm down when they have a fear of losing that person. Because as soon as that person says, I've had enough, I'm going, hold on, I can be different. You know that you're wrong, but you didn't have the capacity to change until the person was leaving the door. And the entity will basically allow the person you fell in love with to show its face so it can hold you. And as soon as you start being normal again, the entity comes out and slaps you down again.
You've explained so much. So, yeah, you've just explained it. And I think most of us know those kind of couples where you're just like, just leave each other alone. But then when it's working, So.
Another one, we call it a narc and a narkette. A narc that wants to treat someone bad, and a narkette that's only happy when someone is treating them that way. So you try to tell her, no, go. Yeah, they looking for friends to complain about how bad the person is, but they never leave the person. And you think, I'll do everything. This person's doing this and doing that. And even when the person beats them, they just get upset sometimes. They can't leave. And then the narc has to feed off that person, so they want to control everything that person does. And that person feels happy about being controlled. To the point where when that person who is being controlled leaves, everyone else is boring to them, not excited. So they'll go back to being controlled because that saves them having to think about their life because someone's telling them what to do. It's almost like their essence is gone and all that's left now is a shell that only lives to serve that person and vice versa.
That really makes so much sense. I'm just going to steer the conversation a bit to familial relationships. Definitely in my own familial relationship, I really have a big sense that I don't know why, the Foster clan, it just feels like every time we come back and maybe just swap, this time I'll be your mum, okay, you be my dad, 100%. That's how it just feels. And I think in a bigger sense, I'm like, why?
Okay.
Yeah.
This reality is it gets crazy when you start saying PlayStations and holograms and things like that. But the only way to get to this dimension is through a woman. A woman is the gateway between two worlds. So you travel from a dimension through a woman to get to this dimension. So we're in a situation where if you start going deeper into the whole ancestral thing, you find that a cloud of energies travel together. And over a period of time, each of them bring each one in. So if someone transitions, I'm saying, okay, who is the grandchildren you're going to come back through? Because every time you have a child, it's really to create a paradigm for a new ancestor to be able to come in. So before we come here, we have a look and say, okay, what story do I want to go into? Oh, there's rape and abuse, all right, I'll survive. Oh, there's this and that, I'll survive. You see all the stories before you come through. Because the reality is, you're an immortal, you can't die. All that transitions is your body. Your body is what becomes dust to dust. Your consciousness has left your body an hour or two after you've died. The consciousness, unfortunately, is still in the body when the person transitions, because what has happened is the heart has stopped. They measure it on the heart. The consciousness is still within the mind. So you're always mindful that when someone's died, they still can hear everyone talking. They can hear everyone crying and sobbing. So sometimes certain nursing homes, they would know to say, okay, leave the body to rest for an hour or so that the body and the consciousness can actually leave the body. Wow. Not be held down. So it will actually leave the body, and then when you look at the body, you can see it's unanimated. There's just nothing there because the actual consciousness is left. And then there's a whole thing with who's waiting for it. But yeah, go on.
No, that's really fascinating. You know, even when you said about kind of the holographic nature and like the Matrix, we had this situation with my mum where she was choking, so I called the ambulance. And my big brother was like, well, I knew she was going to go soon, so I wouldn't have called the ambulance. And so we had a bit of a thing of, it's not my decision to make without speaking to the rest of you lot. And I remember when we were talking about it, I actually said, you know, I could never watch her go out choking. But if her heart was to give out, then that's how she goes. And so it kept on being said, if her heart gives out, if her heart gives out. And then the day that she died, we were told, oh, one of her valves are leaking in her heart. And then that's how she went. And there was always this thing of it might be the choking because fluid on the lungs. But when they said, oh yeah, it's the valve, so we reckon it's her heart that gave out, it was like, I knew it's the heart. And I knew it even when I said, before she died, that the heart. And when those things happen, I think, this thing is a story. This place is not the reality.
It's not the reality.
Yeah, I can
It's
see
where
it.
we actually engage in a PlayStation that allows us to play games as our thoughts. So every night you can't sleep. Why? Because you've got a thought, which is a game that you're playing personal to your personal PlayStation. And you just come into an environment where you can choose an avatar that will enable you to play a certain role in a certain story. So sadly, that's it. Because again, the reason why the consciousness is still alive, because there's still fresh blood in the mind where the consciousness resides. So therefore, when the body recognizes that, hold on, there's no more blood coming, then the consciousness knows that the body is over and it can then leave.
Makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. And because of your insight, I'm really, really curious about the ancestors. Because yesterday we had Baba Siete talking to us, and it was a fun and really good talk about really connecting more with our ancestors and connecting when, if you like, not always going for the deities, go to your ancestors first because they're the ones who know you. And it was really, really, it was such a good conversation because I actually realised that I got more from my grandfather than I thought I had before the talk. And I also, he made me realise that I definitely was putting a lot more into my deity altar, which is higher than my ancestral altar, is bigger than my. It gets more candles. It gets so much. And after yesterday's talk, I was saying to someone today, no, I'm gonna, rebalance things, because actually he really made me see the value. So for me, as someone who was super close with my mum, and Mum Yessi, if she's still here, when she did my palm, could actually see that we had like a covenant together. So for me, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. It will be when I'll put her picture on my ancestral altar. And I'm interested in our new dialogue.
Okay.
And so I'd like some advice, really, in that way of how do I carry on working with my mum now that she's on the other side.
Okay. It's not difficult, unfortunately. First of all, let's say, when your mother will transition, she won't go, let me do this one, we'll go back there first. What tends to happen before someone transitions? At least a month before they pass, the ancestors come and visit them.
That's what happened.
That's right. So what happens is, a month or so before, she'll start saying that she's seeing different people coming along. And everyone says, we can't see them, are you going crazy, what have you? But they turn up a month before to prepare you for the journey that you're going to come. So as soon as you see the ancestors, you say, okay, it's going to be soon. So they come. So what happens is, when the consciousness leaves the body, they're waiting for her to take her. And then she'll go over there, and that will become her birthday over there. So there'll be a celebration over there when she goes there. All right? Initially, she will return to be around the family because everyone's going to be crying. So you'll almost feel her on your shoulders, basically pressing down just to reassure you and make everyone feel better. And then when the funeral comes and everything like that, she will go back over there to receive another avatar. So it could take 20 days, 27 days, whatever. She'll receive another avatar when then she can come and you can see her within your mind. It's not the most, we do it, we cover it on the courses that we do. And we do readings where you can show people how to actually then communicate with them, see them in their mind, and then you can have a dialogue with her all the time. So they don't transition, they just change, this sounds crazy, but they change how they broadcast their signal. Yeah? Because when you look at somebody, they are broadcasting, no one's physical. Yeah? If sound can pass through you, energy can pass through you, you're not a physical being. You just appear physical. The same way that a light appears constant, we know it's going on and off, on and off. So you are radiating a frequency at a speed that makes you appear like you're physical or you're a constant image in someone else's mind. When someone transitions, they no longer broadcast. So you can't see them, but they exist as an energy form inside of you still. So you can speak to them within yourself as you're walking along, talking, so they don't die. So it's even better now, not better, but if your ancestor or your parent lives somewhere else, they're not encumbered by the pain of the avatar. And they're free to act as an actual consciousness. So you can speak to them directly and communicate, and they can start to help you make sense of the reality around you. Because it's almost like a new class starts inside your mind where they now want to teach you who and what you really are as an essence, as opposed to who you are as a gender in a story.
That makes so much sense, so much sense. So thank you. I knew I would get some real gems. That's absolutely beautiful. And the other relationship I'd love for you to talk about then is children and parents.
Ooh, okay.
That relationship.
Simple one. Your children are your grandparents returned. Because your children teach you how to be a parent. You don't know what to do until you're with the child, and the child has the patience and you have the patience to both learn how to become a parent. The reason why the grandparents get on with the children is because they recognize their friends. Yeah?
When you're kind of like a young, like in your 20s, well, for myself, 20s and 30s, children were fine, but just not really that interested in them. But then when I would watch my mum with her grandchildren, you know, I lose what I'm doing, I've forgotten about them, I turn back, they are still talking and chatting and genuinely interested in each other. And you know, I often you think, wow, how did she do it? But what I've been finding is that since I went past 50, I'm finding this new intellectual conversations with really small children. It's like we're getting each other, which definitely in my 30s, I really, you know, tap on the head, yeah, very nice. Now, I find them fascinating. So, I don't know, is it a gene that turns on? You start to recognize
Patience, maybe. Increase patience as you get older. But a child, the little child that's born, has the entirety of who they are, what they're going to grow to, what size they're going to be, who they're going to meet. Everything that's going to happen in that child's life is in that little baby right there. So all of it is a situation where the adult, the intelligence of the adult is in that baby. That baby has to grow into their story. So as they grow, each time something is switched on. Oh, I understand this, I understand that, I understand this. I know in our courses we teach people how to speak their own language, or their language that comes from the planet that they came from, because none of us were born here, we didn't originate here. All of us started somewhere else, made the journey via our mother and came out to this dimension. But the thing is, what we found is, you can speak to the baby in your language, and the baby can look at you like, what's this? You understand what I'm talking about? And then they see someone who's got sense here who can speak. And they start speaking to you. You can start speaking to them in their language. Where the child we actually had a lady that did the course. And again, I asked her permission before I tell the story, but she knew that her and her son spoke the same language, and it was only about 2 or something. So she looked at the boy and said, okay, hold on, so if I can speak all this language thing, what's the child's name? So she heard the child's name and she said it. The child looked up to her like, huh? Then she said, how do you say lay down? And so she said it, and the child looked at her, okay. And then she said it again, and the child started to lay down. All of it is there. Yeah, it's just that we're so, unfortunately, chasing our beliefs and chasing everything outside of ourselves to give us some reward in this reality. We don't miss what's standing there right in front of us. And the children are adults just in baby bodies.
So, wow, that's just really profound, the grandparents coming back. And so siblings, because that's such an interesting relationship, siblings. You know, some siblings can be, I don't know, maybe old next door neighbours you never used to get on with, and now they come back to torment you. But I imagine, no, siblings is still that blood that you're sharing. Or what is it with siblings? What's the story?
Well, remember we said there's a group of people that come in. So the truth is, when you get down, it might be uncomfortable, but all of you swap roles. So your grandfather could be your son, and vice versa. So your mother could have been your wife, and your brother could have been your wife, and the daughter could have been the husband of the father. So you start looking at the relationships and say, what's going on? Yeah, everything's a bit strange, because all of you have played different roles at different times and have different unconscious memories of how you treated each other at different times. That's why you can have a daughter and a mother be at loggerheads, because in a previous life they swapped roles. And you'll have situations where mother will just treat a daughter terrible. Then we have to go back and look at the past lives, because we do that. We go look at a past life and say, what was the relationship between that mother and daughter, or your mother in a previous life, where we see that the daughter used to beat the mother. And the mother, it's her turn now. So you think she's terrible, but she's really just reenacting a memory that she doesn't consciously remember, but within her, she's trying to balance what took place the previous time. And you volunteered for it so that you could end, it sounds harsh, but you could end what you did. And therefore that debt is cleared. And once that debt is cleared, the next incarnation, you haven't got that debt with that person. That's the whole thing. You travel through life meeting people that you helped in previous lives, but also you hurt in previous lives. That's why you can have a partner that treats you terrible and there's no karmic transition. No, nothing happens. Why? Because they just balanced out a debt that they had with you in a previous one. The problem is when the debt has been covered and they're still carrying on. And that's why they're creating something new for themselves. So you really want to end that so that you don't end up with that person in another life and now the roles are reversed. But this is where your relationship with your ancestors, you can actually check. So if someone comes into your life, you check with your ancestors and say, do I know them? And they'll say, yeah, you did this and that. Oh, crap. All right. So now you're going to go through a lifetime with this person where you're paying off what you did to them. And even though you're angry and annoyed, it's because you don't remember what you did. But they unconsciously do, and they're doing it to you.
That's really, I mean, I can definitely see that thing. I was saying to somebody today that it's so annoying. I'm always getting my brother Yao, who some of you might have heard speak, and my son Seren, I get their names wrong all the time. And I don't do it with anybody else. It's just those two, Yao, Seren, constantly getting them the wrong way round. And so I just keep thinking, yeah, it's like there's a glitch in the matrix where they didn't finish whatever the severing job is, and I keep kind of mixing the two of them up. So what I'm wondering is, you know, people talk about generational curses now and breaking generational traumas, and I know for myself, working sometimes in the realms of retrieving. There was a time, I think I told you about, I had a trip where I was worried. I went for a period of time worried about my niece, who has lots of children, and I was shown that my worry was causing kind of darts of bad things, the worries, like worry darts, and each dart carried whatever it was I was worried, and I was sending it into their future, this worry. And in the trip, I was made to bring it all back.
Okay.
And it made me think about this idea of, okay, how do we break generational certain stories that can keep coming back again and again? If you look back, what was happening to your grandmother or your great-grandmother, and these repetitions. And so there's a lot of talk nowadays, especially about kind of healing generational wounds, healing ancestral wounds. Are we making that stuff up, or are we really able to heal generational traumas?
That's a good one. Because I don't want to throw water on the idea that you can... Okay, all right. You'll have the obvious one, where whatever a mother is feeling during pregnancy is then, because again, the left side brain of a baby is not used. It hasn't come into this world. It hasn't collected any memories. It hasn't done anything yet. But the right side is there, because that's what links it to the different lineages, is the past lives and everything. Yeah, the left side, the right side of your brain, that's your creative center, and that's what you can use to connect to different dimensions on the right side. Hence, when you start spiritual work, you start getting a headache on the right side of your brain because there's an increase in blood capacity going into your mind. So it takes a while, it goes after a while, but the right side of your brain is connected to that. The thing is, whatever the mother is thinking and feeling and going through during pregnancy, on the right side of her brain, her emotions is then transferred to the child. So you can tell the difference between brothers and sisters. What's the old saying? We all have the same mother, but we all have different moms. With each child, she's a different person. She's a different character. So the child that comes out is connected to who she was and what was going on in her side, that right side of her brain, at the time when she was traveling through her pregnancy. So she effectively downloaded what she was going through into that child. And that child's personality could be passive, it could be aggressive, it could be angry, but it would all reflect what the mother was going through. So in that instance, it passes down. You also have the instance of when, fortunately, the mother's been abused. That frequency of the abuse of what took place also is then passed on to the child. So the child now has a higher chance of being abused because the frequency or the magnetic signature of that event is now attached to that child, and now the actual child could have that happen to them because it happened to the mother. So in that instance, that's passed down. You also have the fact that the DNA is really just a library. And it's a library of all the other things your ancestors have been through. So therefore, the DNA inside you holds all your ancestors' personalities, characters, everything. There's that whole thing on epigenetics where essentially if the child has a frequency or an event take place, it's up to them which ancestor or what memory they bring forward and bring that character out of them. Now, we say that your parents make your body, but your consciousness is yours. That is the original, what do you call it? Three, whatever? The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. But it's really you, your parent, and you, the consciousness. They create the body for you, and in their body, there's all the different things that they've done, all the different events, it's all stored in them. So through the first 35 years of your life, you're going through your parents' issues. You're going through all the things that they didn't resolve within themselves. And now you're the one who's now has to fix certain things. Why do I like this? Why do I like that? Why am I into this? Why am I into that? Why have I got a tendency to want to do that? And it's not till you speak to your parents and they say, oh, yeah, they know that they did that. Never said anything, but that's been built into your DNA matrix. So those things are passed through. Now, as far as clearing curses, curses can be passed through because everything is, how do you call it? A genetic program signature, where an event took place and it's created a program which is then attached to the child as a magnetic frequency to bring that event to possibly happen to that person. So there is that. But for somebody to say, I'm going to clear a generational curse, they would have to find an energy that would go to every thought of every person in all your generations and clear that. Such a thing is not possible. Yeah? So the onus is on every individual to clear as much of the energies that are attached to them, so that mothers don't bring children that have the frequencies of what happened to them. So fathers clear themselves up so that they don't pass over in their genetic material what is going on. And the whole thing is based on the snapshot of the day of conception, because it's who you are on the day of conception, and what your mindsets are on the day of conception becomes the signature for that child, and that becomes what that child has to get over for the first X amount of years of their life.
I love that, because you've done the gamut of relationships. So I want to ask people in the audience, does anyone have a question?